the first little skill that we need to have here is finding the greatest common factor, as we refer to this as factoring out a GCF, right? So we refer to that as greatest common factor. Okay, so in this first example, it asks us to factor the greatest common factor out of 14x to the fourth minus 21x squared. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is figure out, like, out of these two coefficients, like, what's the greatest common factor between these two coefficients? Right? I know some of you guys will be quicker than others getting this, but I'm going to work all this out. All right, so 14 is going to be, I could get there doing 1 times 14 or 2 times 7. Right? Again, we're only using integers for this, right? We're not saying, like, you know, how many times is 2.5? What do you have to multiply 2.5 by to get 14, right? That's not what we're doing, just integers, okay? So I can't think of any others for 14, so let's look at 21, right? So we have 1 times 21, we have 3 times 7, let's see, any more? No, that's it. So again, I can see here that my greatest common factor between 12 and 14 here is 7. Right, so I'm going to take out a 7. All right. Also, we have to figure out, what the greatest common factor is here between the variables that are attached. Right, we have x to the fourth and we have x squared. Okay, so the question I like to ask here is, how many x's do they have in common? Okay, or in other words, how many x's do they both have? Okay, well, remember, x to the fourth is x times x times x times x, right? Whereas this is just x times x. Right, so they have only 2 x's in common. Okay, so we're also going to factor out an x squared. So when we actually write out this problem again, I'm going to just rewrite this so I have a little bit more room to work with here. So 14x to the fourth minus 21x squared. Okay, now we decided that we're going to take out a 7, and we're also going to take out an x squared because they each have 2 x's in common. Okay, so here's how this is going to work. So I'm going to write this here in green. Okay, so I'm going to write 7x squared, and then I'm going to write a parentheses, right? We're always going to write out what's left over inside of the parentheses, okay? Well, in order to figure out what goes in the parentheses, we're just going to go ahead and divide these numbers by 7x squared, and we'll divide this by 7x squared. Okay, so hopefully after our exponent rules, this should really be pretty easy, okay? I know that 14 divided by 7 here, so 14 divided by 7 is going to give me 2. Right? And x to the fourth over x squared is just going to give me x squared, right? The upstairs wins by 2. Okay, now I have negative 21 divided by 7, which is going to give me a negative 3. Okay, and I have x squared over x squared, which is the same thing as x to the 0 power, which is just 1. So I don't have to put anything there. Okay, so this is actually going to be my final answer, right? 7x squared times the quantity of 2x squared minus 3. Okay, pretty simple, but let's go ahead and take a look at another example. Okay, so our next example, it says factor the greatest common factor out of 33x to the fifth minus 21x squared. Okay, so again, we're going to take a look at the coefficients first. Okay, so I'll look at the factors of 33 and then the factors of 121. Okay, well, 33, obviously 1 times 33 is a common one there. Okay, I know 2 is not going to work, but I know that 3 and 11 will give me 33. Okay, 4 times something won't work, 5 times something won't work, 6, maybe 33 divided by 6. Let's see, 33 divided by 6, 6 goes into 30. That's not going to work either, right? Because 6 times 6 is 36 and 6 times 7 is 42. Okay, what about 7 won't work, 8 won't work, 9 won't work. 10 won't work. Okay, so again, we're running out of options here, right? So these are the only options that we have, and that's okay. All right, so 121, obviously we have 1 and 121. Okay, 2 will not work. What about 3? Well, let's see if 3 might work here, right? So 121 divided by 3. 3 goes into here, 4 times for 12. Okay, it's going to be 0. 3 doesn't go into 1, so we're going to get something messy here. So we know that's not going to work. Okay, let's look at 4 won't work, 5 won't work, 121 divided by 6. No, 6 won't work here either because it's an odd number. So 7, let's see. I know that 11 is 11 times 11 definitely works. I think that might be our special number here, right? So let's go ahead and call this is going to be our greatest common factor here of 11. Okay, now again, we look at our x's and say, okay, well, how many x's do we have in common? right? This is 5 x's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this is 2, right? So they only actually have 2 in common, right? And so we're also going to take out an x squared. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite my problem here so I have some room to work with. 33x to the 5th minus 121x squared. Okay, I'm going to take out our magic number of 11. And I'm also going to take out, an x squared, okay, because they have 2 x's in common. And I'm going to figure out what else I can write in my parentheses here. So I'll divide this by my greatest common factor, and divide this by my greatest common factor, and this will be what I actually write in my parentheses. Right? So 33 divided by 11 will give me 3. X to the 5th over x squared will give me x cubed. Negative 121 over 11 will give me a negative 11. And then x squared over x squared will give us 1. So we don't have to write anything there. So this is going to be our final answer with the GCF taken out.